Welcome to Catholic News World.
Welcome to Catholic News World. Please subscribe to our channel. My name is Steph. Here are this week's breaking news headlines.
132 Catholic priests and religious were arrested, kidnapped, or killed in 2023, according to a new statistical report. This was according to the numbers collected by the Pontifical Foundation Aid to the Church in Need. 13 priests and one religious brother were killed during 2023, though half were killed for reasons apparently unrelated to persecution. Arrests increased, while kidnappings of clergy and religious dropped compared to 2022, but remains a serious concern, especially in Africa. This represents an increase from 124 in 2022. These are, however, the confirmed cases. The number could be higher since in some countries reliable information is difficult to obtain. Of these, 86 were clergy arrested or detained at some point during 2023. Some of the priests and religious had already been arrested or abducted before the year began but remained in custody or were missing for some or all of 2023. This compares to 55 who were under arrest at some point during 2022. Nicaragua and Belarus lead the list of authoritarian regimes that have resorted to detaining priests and religious in order to punish the Church for speaking out against injustices and human rights violations, or merely for trying to operate freely. A total of 46 clergy were under arrest at some point during 2023 in Nicaragua, including 2 bishops and 4 seminarians, while others, including religious sisters such as the Missionaries of Charity, were expelled from the country or refused re-entry after being abroad. Many of the priests who had been arrested were eventually released or sent into exile, but a major crackdown over the last 2 weeks of December led to the arrest of at least 19 clerics, including Bishop Isidoro de Carmen Mora Ortega of Sayuna. 2 of the priests were later released, but the remaining 17, plus Bishop Rolando Alvarez, who was arrested in August 2022 and later sentenced to 26 years in prison, remain in custody. Even if proving the information is almost impossible, ACN numbers point to 20 cases of clergy under arrest at some point in 2023 in China, some of whom remain unaccounted for after many years. But the true number could be higher, or even slightly lower, as some priests or bishops may have been released without details being made public. Another country which has resorted to arrests in order to silence priests is Belarus, where at least 10 were detained by the authorities at some point, with 3 still behind bars as the year drew to a close. Fathers Ivan Levitsky and Bogdan Helita, the 2 Greek Catholic priests who were arrested in Ukraine in 2022 by occupying Russian forces, have also not yet been released. And in India, where anti-conversion laws continue to be used to try and impede the work of Catholic organizations, at least 6 were arrested over the year, including 1 religious sister. All have since been released, though some still face charges that could lead to prison sentences. The number of priests or religious sisters kidnapped in 2023 dropped to 33 from 54 in 2022 but remains significant. This number includes 5 priests who were abducted in previous years, but remained in the hands of their kidnappers or were unaccounted for in 2023. Nigeria leads the list by far, with 28 cases, including 3 religious sisters, whereas the only other country with multiple cases was Haiti, with 2. Other countries where priests were kidnapped include Mali and Burkina Faso, while in Ethiopia 1 religious sister was abducted. 2023 saw 14 religious losing their lives, including 11 priests, 1 bishop, 1 religious brother and 1 seminarian. Tragically, in 2023, many Christians, and especially clergy and religious, paid a heavy price for their commitment to common good, human rights, religious freedom and the freedom of the communities and nations they serve. Catholic bishops of Lebanon call for a ceasefire between Israel and Gaza as they sound the alarm with the war entering Lebanese territory. Fides reports that the escalation of the war in the Middle East has hit Lebanon, exacerbating the risks of worsening a situation that has already become a kind of dangerous situation due to the presence of more than 1 million Syrian refugees on Lebanese territory. The bishops of the Maronite Catholic Church, who met for their monthly meeting at the Patriarchate of Kirk on Wednesday, January 3, under the presidency of the Maronite Patriarch, Cardinal Bekara Boutros Rai, are therefore sounding the alarm. The escalation had already caused casualties and injuries among residents of the region as well as massive destruction in several localities in southern Lebanon, not to mention the use of phosphorus bombs that have burned green spaces. In the first point of their statement, the Maronite bishops call on the Lebanese deputies to fulfill their constitutional obligation to elect a new president of the republic in order to save the country from collapse and instability. Regarding the war in the Holy Land, the Maronite bishops express their deep regret at the killings, destruction, and violence carried out, particularly against the civilian population in the Gaza Strip and the West Bank, by the Israeli army and the Israeli settlers, and call for a final ceasefire that will form the basis for negotiations between the parties involved on the basis of the so-called two-state solution. In view of the escalation of the conflict in the areas near the Israeli-Lebanese border, the Maronite bishops call on the Friends of Lebanon in the world to contribute effectively to the implementation of Security Council Resolution 1701, which is the only way forward, to put an end to Israel's aggression and to define a clear and effective framework for peace in southern Lebanon. In another important passage of their statement, the Maronite bishops sounded the alarm about the problems linked to the large presence of Syrian refugees in Lebanese territory. On January 8, 2024, the Patriarch wrote, "We, in turn, condemn the war and call for peace by negotiation on every occasion. Also for Israel's war on Gaza, and its extension to South Lebanon, especially since Lebanon is immune from war with Israel by the power of Security Council Resolution 1701. Everyone should abide by it." After their meeting, they issued a statement saying that they call together with all people of good conscience in the world for a final ceasefire, in preparation for the start of negotiations between the parties concerned, based on a two-state solution for Israel and Palestine. Bishop David O'Connell thanked everyone for prayers that were answered following his release from hospital after a heart attack in Rome. The bishop was released from the cardiac care unit of Santo Spirito Hospital in Rome on January 9th. He is expected to return to New Jersey later this week as planned with the priests of the diocese who had been on pilgrimage. He will continue his recovery, along with rehabilitation, at home upon his return. The bishop was hospitalized after suffering a heart attack on January 4th due to a blockage of the largest cardiac artery. He underwent an emergency procedure to open the artery. In an email sent to diocesan curia members, Bishop O'Connell gratefully acknowledged that he has received hundreds of well wishes from throughout the diocese and the wider church. He again thanked everyone for their support and prayers. The Vatican has released a new document clarifying fiducia supplians and says local bishops can discern whether or not to permit the blessings of couples. Dicastery for the Doctrine of the Faith wrote that this declaration remains firm on the traditional doctrine of the Church about marriage, not allowing any type of liturgical rite or blessing similar to a liturgical rite that can create confusion. One acts in these situations of couples in irregular situations without officially validating their status or changing in any way the Church's perennial teaching on marriage. The Vatican's statement, signed by the Cardinal Prefect and the Secretary, clarifies that a fiducia supplicans does not change the doctrine on marriage, that local bishops are able to discern the application of the document according to their context, and that pastoral blessings are not comparable to liturgical and ritualized blessings. This comes just before the bishops of Africa, whose head wrote that they do not consider it appropriate for Africa to bless homosexual unions, but that they affirm communion with Pope Francis. Cardinal Fridolin Ambongo, president of SICAM, says the African churches will continue to reflect on fiducia supplicans while reaffirming their unwavering communion with Pope Francis and highlighting the freedom of each bishop in their own diocese. The episcopal conferences generally prefer each bishop remaining free in his diocese not to offer blessings to same-sex couples. This decision stems from concern about potential confusion and scandal within the church community. The episcopal conferences across Africa, which have strongly reaffirmed their communion with Pope Francis, believe that the extra-liturgical blessings proposed in the Declaration Fiducia Supplicans cannot be carried out in Africa without exposing themselves to scandals. Cardinal Fridolin Ambongo Basungu, Archbishop of Kinshasa and President of SICAM, Symposium of the Episcopal Conferences of Africa and Madagascar, published a letter indicating the position of African bishops concerning the extra-liturgical blessings proposed in the Declaration of the Dicastery for the Doctrine of the Faith. Cardinal Ambongo's letter, released on January 11, is a consolidated summary of the positions adopted by various national and interterritorial episcopal conferences across the African continent on the declaration. He notes that the statement, signed on January 11, received the agreement of Pope Francis and DDF Prefect Cardinal Fernandez. Through the declarations of the Episcopal Conferences, the Church in Africa, as the family of God, reaffirms its commitment to continuing pastoral assistance to all its members. Clergy are encouraged to provide welcoming and supportive pastoral care, particularly to couples in irregular situations. The African Bishops' Conferences emphasized that people with a homosexual tendency must be treated with respect and dignity, while reminding them that unions of persons of the same sex are contrary to the will of God and therefore cannot receive the blessing of the Church.
Watch our programme every Friday at 7:30 p.m. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe to Catholic News World channel. God bless.
Please subscribe to Catholic News World's YouTube channel. Thanks and God bless.